Welcome to a special NBA edition of the J&J Podcast. This is episode 17. I'm Jamie.
This is Jameson.
I want to welcome all our listeners in. We were on a bit of a hiatus last week, but boy, do we have some topics to discuss this week with the breaking news that just recently happened over the weekend. And as most of our listeners know, both Jameson and I are huge Lakers fans.
Die hard.
So we have a lot to talk about today. And I guess, honestly, Jameson, the first place that we can start is Luka Doncic. So, here's the thing. I'm going to let you start because we are excited, but we also both have somewhat different opinions.
Yeah.
About how this is going to look and how it could look. And,
for sure.
Short term versus long term. So I'm just going to let you talk, Jameson. The floor is yours because I know you have a lot to say, and then I'll jump in.
Okay. And honestly, I'll keep my initial thoughts brief, but I'm going to be honest. I remember this was what night? Was it Saturday night, correct? Yeah, it was Saturday night. Basically, actually, really Sunday morning because it was past 12. But I remember I was literally sitting there a little bit after midnight, sitting there eating some Papa John's pizza. And you know me, I have Shams, Chris Haynes, Agent Wojnarowski, whenever he used to have it. I have all their notifications on because I always want to be the first to know when we have some crazy NBA news. So I'm sitting there just casually scrolling on Twitter, and I get the Shams notification, and I start reading the trade, and I'm like, bro, there's no way. Like, I know my eyes aren't deceiving me. And I saw that we were getting Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. I'm going to keep it a whole stack with you. And I feel like 99% of Twitter was like this as well. I thought Shams had been hacked. I ain't even going to hold you. When I saw that trade, I was like, bro, there's no way this actually happened. And so, you know me, for the next 10, 15 minutes, I was scrolling on Twitter. Then even after that, Shams posted a tweet after that and was like, yes, this is real. Dude still didn't believe him. Like, there were people that were literally asking him to actually post a video of him talking about, oh, yeah, this is an actual trade. So, a long story short, as soon as I stayed on Twitter for about another 5 or 10 minutes, and then ESPN officially tweeted out the trade, and then I was like, yeah, that has to be real. So
and
you
then
remember,
what happened?
And then you remember, I called you immediately after that, just called you on FaceTime, and you were in and out of sleep. You didn't believe me at first, and then you started looking on Twitter. We were both just blown away. So I'll just say this, and I'll go and get your thoughts, and then we'll just jump back and forth with our reaction to everything. But I will just say this off rip. The fact that the Lakers just got a 25-year-old who is arguably a top 2 to 3 player in all of basketball, getting him in his prime off of a finals appearance, and then also to add insult to injury on top of that, well, not add insult to injury, but just to enhance that even more, you now have a superstar player that you can build around even when LeBron retires. Of course, you know me. I'm a huge Anthony Davis fan. I've always have been and always will be rooting for Anthony Davis. But that was a trade where I honestly feel like we low-key fleeced the Mavericks long-term and even in the short term. I know a lot of people right now are like, yeah, the Mavericks win the short term, the Lakers win this trade long-term. But I feel like, honestly, it can be a little bit of both. I say we definitely won this trade long term because, like I said, Luka's 25 years old in the prime of his career. He's literally 6 years younger than Anthony Davis, with him being 31 years old right now. So I feel like long term we definitely won the trade, and even short term, I'll get to some more of my thoughts a little bit later on. But I'm even hearing a report today from David McMenamin that trade, LeBron's more than likely going to sign a contract extension this offseason and at least play another 2 seasons. So even in the short term, the fact that we're about to be able to combine Luka Doncic at the age of 25 with LeBron James, the player that he looked up to, I'm over the moon. I might be the happiest brother in North Carolina right now. But your thoughts?
Yeah, you called me, and I was in and out of sleep. And I'm honestly kind of glad. Initially, I was like, dude, this isn't real.
Yeah.
And I was still processing it. And then as I started reading more, I was like, okay, well, maybe it is real. And then I still took a step back, and I was like, I don't know if I want this. I don't know if I like this. And you were just like, come on, Dad. I know you're tired, but you really got to think about what this actually means.
Yeah.
And So, but then when I went and looked at what the Lakers actually got him for, I was like, oh,
Yep.
now a radar went up because I'm like, how did we do that with just that?
One first round
Um,
pick.
One first round pick? How was that? How was that possible? And so that was my first initial thought.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about, well, wow, Anthony Davis kind of was more outspoken the last time he was
Yeah.
interviewed and said, I want a center. I play my best basketball when I have a center. And I'm like,
Hey, he
so
got what he asked for, just not on the right team.
right. So I'm like, so the dude really just comes right out,
Publicly.
being real publicly,
Yeah.
being frank about it and saying, I want a center. And then y'all trade the cat
Yeah.
is what I was thinking. And of course, more information started coming out. You know, for all those folks, by the way, who say that LeBron is the GM, please be quiet.
Yeah.
Please stop with the La GM stuff because he didn't find out
He
about
was
it
out
until
at dinner after the
game.
game because it was right after the Knicks game.
That's right, exactly. So those were my initial thoughts. Now, after I started hearing more information and getting more information, there were, in my opinion, some red flags. I was like, there's that meme from the Boondocks. What did that brother do that made them dudes so
That
mad?
mad.
Had them dudes that bad? So I'm sitting here like, what did Luka Doncic do that had the Dallas Mavericks so easily ready to trade him that they're like, oh, we'll take a first round, and that's it.
I'm gonna be
Essentially,
honest. When I first saw that trade, I was like, he must be a serial killer behind the scenes because there's no way you trade a 25-year-old in his prime, international superstar, and that they just came off a finals appearance. Like,
yeah,
and I know you're probably about to get to this, but like some of the red flags. One thing I also saw was like he was out of shape, the conditioning issues, being close to 270 pounds. And I will say part of what also played into this was ownership in the GM. You know, Luke was about to be one of the first players eligible for that Supermax contract. $345 million over 5 years. He's basically getting $70 million a year. And you know what?
yes,
And you know how honestly the Mavericks just hold him. He's now not going to be eligible
oh,
for
I
that with the
know,
Lakers. So he's
I
already
know,
missing out on over $100 million. And then, Dad, to make matters worse, you got to think about it like this: $345 million is different in Texas than it is in LA because there's no state income tax there.
through
So
that.
you got to look at it like even if he was to get the Supermax, like we just said, he's not even eligible for it with the Lakers. He still wouldn't get as much money because there's close to like a 10 to 11% income tax in LA, and you know the
That's
cost of
absolutely
living in
right.
LA is ridiculous.
Out of control, out of control.
So
So
they really don't like that brother, I guess.
yeah, at this point, and I mean, look, we all are on social media.
Yeah.
I saw this clip of, I think it was the game against the Celtics when there was a charge that he tried to take a charge,
Yeah.
and then pretty much after that he fell down, and then he basically complained to the officials, went back and forth. He told the bench, he yelled at the bench, and basically cussed at the bench and told them you need to effing challenge it and all
Yeah.
this other kind of stuff. But then I go back and I look at some of the footage. I'm like, brother, you played absolutely no defense.
You remember speaking of that, me and you talked about that in this past year's playoffs whenever they went up against the Timberwolves, because you remember there
Yes,
were games where like he was complaining, and then even against the Celtics too. You remember against the Celtics, like it got to the point where like I remember even Brian Windhorst thought that like he kind of cost his team some of those games because
yeah,
he kept getting technical fouls. He was arguing with the refs, looking for calls, wasn't playing a lick of defense. I even saw a stat today like 48% of the time that someone's guarded by Lucas, a blow by. Like it was some crazy stat like that, and I'm like, literally that was the highest in the entire National Basketball Association. So I'm like, I
yes,
get it, like they're defensive questions, but my rebuttal to that is the brother's 25 years old. So,
agreed.
and like you said, it's not like we have to teach his brother how to shoot or do something like that. We always said this because we know basketball. Like I used to play basketball. Defense is all about effort. And
Defenses want to.
it's a
That's what it
mindset.
is.
It's a mindset, and like you said, it's a want to. Like some of the reason, of course, there are some players that have intangibles, but John Stockton, for example, had the most steals in NBA history. A lot of that is just pure will. John Stockton is not very athletic. He's not,
Nor was he the fastest.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you look at John Stockton, you're like, how is this dude even an NBA player just looking at his stature? And then he's he's one of the best point guards of all time. So, defense is all about giving effort. And I will say, this could honestly be like, people think they've already point. Yeah, it could be a turning point. People like I compare it to similar how after LeBron lost the finals to the Mavericks. After that, that's when we started getting the LeBron James 2.0, and you've seen what's happened from there. Like, I think people have already feel like they've seen the best of Luka. I don't think we have, and I think this trade, like, I don't see how he could be more ticked off and more motivated for your former team to give up on you. You miss out on over $100 million. They basically call you fat and out of shape, and they don't even want to commit to you after you just carried them to a finals appearance. And Dad, just to put it into perspective, Luka Doncic right now at the age of 25, he has the third highest point per game average in NBA history. Guess who is behind?
LeBron James.
Michael Jordan and Wilt Chamberlain.
What?
And then guess what? He's second all time in point per game average. Guess who he's behind? Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So the fact that this brother is 25, already one of the best scorers we've ever seen, also one of the best playmakers, facilitators we have ever seen, and he's now about to learn from arguably the best basketball player of all time. And trust me, if I was going to learn from somebody how to condition my body and how to diet, what better person than to do that than LeBron James, Raymond James.
So let me jump in on that particular point,
for sure,
because that to me is his saving grace. Mm-hmm. If he came to the Lakers as he is now, and there was no LeBron James, there would be more reason to have red flags, in my opinion.
Yep.
But because you've got LeBron, because of the circumstances, the fact that, as you mentioned, they pretty much gave up on him. Mm-hmm. The GM, what's his name? Nico
Harrison. Yep. Yes, sir.
Yeah. The GM said defense wins championships. Essentially what he said.
You suck on defense.
Yeah, let's translate that. Luka does not play defense. Yep. That's what he was saying.
Yep.
He basically said, we traded this cat because we can't rely on him to play defense.
Yep.
Period.
It's insane.
It's literally that simple. There's no other way to look at what he was what you could translate that into. Mm-hmm. And the proof is in the pudding. There is film to prove that Nico is absolutely correct. He probably saw that video that I saw, because I'm like, man, there was absolutely no effort. Here's what I will say: by him being on a team with LeBron James, LeBron will hold dudes accountable, and we'll talk about it too, because he might now be in the best situation with a head coach who's not going to get away with it.
As soon as you just said holding people accountable, I was literally about to just ask you your thoughts, because you remember we were talking about this briefly earlier. J.J. Redick not only played with Luka Doncic, that just shows you, like, it's wild that he's already a head coach. Like, he literally was playing with Luka a couple years ago. But I've said this, like, if we had a better record, J.J. Redick would be in the running for Coach of the Year. He has coached his butt off so far this season. And prime example of that was, look at the masterclass he put on coaching against the Knicks on Saturday. We didn't even have Anthony Davis in that game, and we held Karl-Anthony Towns to one of his lowest scoring outputs of the entire season. And if you watch that game, we sent double teams, we had good rotations, and we didn't even have Anthony Davis, who was our best defender, and we put on a defensive masterclass. And we've talked about this. There have been games where, like, J.J. Redick will flat out cuss you out if you're not playing defense, not doing what you're supposed to do defensively, and giving effort. So the thing is, like, I don't think Luka, like you just alluded to, could ask for a better situation for a coach. Because part of my thing is, I love Jason Kidd, but it seemed like there were times where Jason Kidd didn't really try to hold Luka Doncic accountable on defense. And it just brings me back to my point about him being so young. Like, we now have our coach of the future in J.J. Redick, and now he's going to have all these years to continue to be able to develop, build that rapport with Luka Doncic, continue to develop his game. Like you've already seen, Austin Reeves has taken that next leap this year in a short amount of time with J.J. Redick being his coach. So I'm really excited. I feel like Luka Doncic deep down is going to be really excited to be able to be coached by J.J. Redick going forward.
Well, and what I will say, too, as far as LeBron James is concerned, If he does sign that 2 year extension, he's there for an additional couple of years. Um, I think that it's going to provide an opportunity for Luka to put a to kind of prove the naysayers wrong
Yeah,
because he does consistently come into the basketball season into the new season
not in the best
out of
shape.
shape.
Yeah.
Yes, he literally looks like a doughboy every year. He just does.
I think
And
that
so
speaks to him though, like in a good way, because like I know that's a bad thing, but you got to look at it like this: the brother's a top 3 NBA player, and he's out of shape half the time. So to your
yeah,
point, imagine
but
what can happen though if he actually takes it seriously. And like that's why I said the point that I made earlier. If this trade doesn't motivate him, then he just won't be motivated. Like you said,
uh,
we say this all the time. Prime example is with Zion. You got to want it for yourself. And I think Luka has already shown he does want to play basketball. I think this is that stepping stone, that turning point, like you mentioned, for him to just be able to like be a complete basketball player, and honestly take that next step as a leader as well. Because we're going to need him to do so even when LeBron retires.
well, I hope he takes that next step
Yeah.
because here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Youth is one thing. You're right. He's 25 and he can afford right now to come into training camp out of shape and work his way in.
Yeah.
The reason why LeBron at 40 years old is still able to do what he does is because LeBron didn't come into training camp fat and out of shape.
You're right.
So
That's what hurt Shaq back in the day, remember?
that's exactly right.
Yep.
So I'm telling you, yes, he's getting away with it right now. But if you want to have a long basketball career and you want to continue your basketball career, and he be at the best of his ability at 35 rather than at 30, um, in order for him to do that, he's going to have to start getting his body in shape and staying in shape.
I agree.
Because that's what you get paid to do, man. That's what
Facts.
you get paid to do. It's your job to be in shape and not come into camp to get into shape. You
Yeah.
should come into camp so that you can work on the other aspects of your game, not just getting into shape.
I agree.
So that's one point that I want to make about him when it comes to, him being now with a good situation, him being with LeBron. He sees someone. I mean, we've seen Anthony Davis improve and get healthier,
Yeah.
and improve. And my hope was that over the course of the last couple of years, and it seems as though he got better because of it, that he was working out with LeBron and doing some of the things that LeBron was doing. So I'm
Yep.
hoping that Luka, gets the memo and that he actually does those same things.
I have
From
a
a Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you go and finish that, and then I was gonna ask you another question. But go and finish your thoughts, sir. My bad.
Yeah, no, and I was getting ready to shift because what I was going to say was, as far as defense is concerned, he's obviously been a defensive liability. I think he can improve defensively.
Yeah.
Listen, Steph is not the best defender, but Steph gives effort on
True.
defense. Trey is not the best defender, but Trey gives effort. Now, I do believe Trey could actually give more effort, but my God, both of them give way more effort than Luka has ever given.
You know something
Uh,
else I was gonna add to that too.
yeah,
I think honestly too, part of it's gonna come down to defensive schemes because that's what's helped Steph Curry out. Those years wherever like Steph was like, top 5 in steals, that was because of the defensive scheme that the Warriors had. Of course, a lot of it was Steph actually gave effort and tried on defense, and I think Luka will get to that point. And I think it actually happen sooner rather than later. But another thing is schematically, it's like looking at our current roster, there will be lineups where Luka doesn't have to sit there and guard the best primary ball handler on the other team. Like
well, you just
Luka,
beat me to the point that
yeah,
I was about to ask
yeah,
you.
because I was
So
gonna
go
say
ahead.
like Luka's 6'6", 6'7", so there are gonna be times where you could put him on a shooting guard or some of these threes that aren't really good shooters and like perimeter threats, and kind of not necessarily hide him on defense, but it's like I will give Luka this. Part of the reason why sometimes he might not want to give so much effort on the Mavs is because he was asked to do so much.
Sure.
Like, and I think that's what it was going to lead me to my next question because I've heard people already saying like, "Oh, Luka and LeBron aren't going to work." I think these people are just basketball idiots. They're not watching what I'm watching.
Listen.
But like to my last quick point before we shift gears into that question. I think on defense, you'll be able to somewhat hide Luka sometimes. And then on offense, like I think the game is going to be easier for him and LeBron because they're both going to be threats and they can play off of each other. Really, it's going to be more so easy for LeBron because Now LeBron can finally play off the ball more. We've been begging for that for the past couple of
Yes.
years. Like,
Yes.
and think about it. This year, LeBron was starting to be able to play off the ball more because of the, ascension of Austin Reeves. But now you're literally adding arguably the best one-on-one primary ball handler in all of basketball, and he's 25. So my question for you is kind of switching gears. How do you think this trade is not only going to affect LeBron's game? We already kind of talked about how more than likely the hope is that he'll now resign and at least play another 2 seasons, given that Luka's going to be there. And that's the thing. I know deep down, LeBron's even said it, like Luka's been his favorite player for years. So I think deep down inside, he's really excited to be able to, play with Luka. But how do you think this is going to affect LeBron now going forward from a basketball perspective?
Well, you kind of alluded to it.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I think it will allow LeBron to do. Because I've heard some of the folks. We know one who's on TNT. We know another one who's on ESPN.
Speaking of that, real quick, it's funny to me how now all of a sudden Charles Barkley is acting like Anthony Davis is Wilt Chamberlain. Now when he was on the on the Lakers, it was street clothes. He can't stay healthy. He's not doing enough. Now in his eyes, the Mavericks are the best team in the Western Conference. It kills me.
Yes, exactly. All of a sudden now you got it's a dominant big man. What they're going to be able to do, and I just don't see how the other one, Luka and LeBron, is going to work out. Let me tell you how it's going to work out. Because LeBron has the highest IQ in basketball,
and Luka is up there. Luka's up there too. Yeah.
So it's going to work out perfectly. LeBron, as you alluded to, will be able to not have to be on the ball all the time. See, here's the thing. You and I watch Lakers games. A lot of folks who are just talking don't.
Yeah. Or just basketball in general.
Well, but here's the other part. It shows that they don't watch because what they haven't paid attention to, if they were watching, is Austin Reeves has been the one who dominated the ball this year.
Yep.
He's been the one being the playmaker.
Yep.
They're only at certain points, LeBron, when Austin Reeves might not have been on the court, or when Austin Reeves had it going, LeBron would then be the playmaker and the facilitator.
Facts.
Now LeBron can play off the ball. LeBron can go in the post because Luka can get him the ball in the post because he's taller than most of the guards that are guarding him, and he can get the ball over the top to LeBron.
Yep.
That combination is going to be ridiculous.
And now, to your point,
when it opens up,
yeah.
Let me say this one other point.
No, you're good.
What it also opens up is, guess what happens when Luka now gets the ball to LeBron in the post? You now have guys who are going to double or they're going to have to try to help off of their man, which leaves wide open shooters for LeBron to pass the ball to, or to swing the ball back for Luka to get the wide open shooters.
Yep.
That's for people who actually understand, watch the game, and know that LeBron can play off the ball just as well as he can play having the ball in his hands.
Yep. And the 2 quick things I was going to say to add to your point, first point I'm going to bring up is that LeBron, people said, how are him and Kyrie Irving going to work? They won an NBA title. And you got to remember back then, LeBron deferred to Kyrie Irving. That's why he was so upset whenever he left. He thought Kyrie was going to be an MVP of the league. Had all the talent and skills to be able to do so. He made it work with Dwayne Wade. It got to the point where, of course, after they lost to the Mavericks, Dwayne Wade was like, this has to be your team. Like, I'll take a step back. But he made it work with D. Wade. Dad, Luka Doncic made it work with Kyrie. You remember when that trade first happened? We're like, bro, there's no way because both of them need the ball in their hands. They made the doggone NBA Finals last year, for crying out loud.
Exactly.
And then the other point I was going to make from a basketball perspective is, one thing I always say about LeBron is he's always going to make the right basketball play. And if you watch all of the Mavericks games, Luka always makes the right play whenever they send double teams. Like, he knows when to, of course, get his own shot, but he's similar to LeBron in that aspect where they're always making good passes and making the right basketball play. So not only do I think the game is going to get easier for LeBron and for Luka, but for some of these other guys on the Lakers, they're going to get wide open shots and just be able to take their games to the next level. Like, Dad, the amount of open looks and stuff that Austin Reeves is going to be able to get now, or even think about this, when there's a lineup where Dalton Connect is on the floor with Luka and LeBron. Like, the amount of shots and stuff that, in rhythm and wide open shots that him and Dorian Finney-Smith, and if we decide to keep Rui, those type of players will get, I think that their games are going to even be able to somewhat go to the next level on offense. And then shifting gears, because I want to get your thoughts on this. We haven't really talked about it from the Mavericks perspective. Do you think that this was at all a good trade for them, or what are your thoughts on that from the Mavericks perspective?
Yeah, so Well, according to Charles Barkley, they're the best team in the West
Yeah,
now. I mean,
facts.
according to him. But I mean, while Anthony Davis was with the Lakers, they weren't the best team. So now
Mm-mm.
all of a sudden, they're the best team. The Lakers weren't the best team because Anthony Davis was on that team.
Yeah.
We really know what this is about. I don't have to spell it out. Everybody who's listening, you can read between the lines. Do I think it's a good? I think it's a good trade for both teams. I actually do.
Yeah.
I think it's a great fit for Kyrie because let's be honest, he hasn't played with a big man who is as good and as capable as Anthony Davis. And now Anthony Davis actually got his wish.
Yeah, he can play the four.
He can play the four, and Gafford can stay there. So I think do short term, I agree with some of the commentary that Dallas has gotten better, but I also think it's also dependent upon, and we'll get into this a little bit later. I also think it's dependent upon what some other teams still might be able to do, including the Lakers, when it comes to who else they actually go out and get. So for the Mavericks, I think short term, absolutely, it's great. I think that the pick and roll that we sometimes see with LeBron and AD, which is unstoppable, could honestly be even more unstoppable because Kyrie Irving is just ridiculous. He can
Yeah.
flat out shoot the ball. And I think it will open up. I also think what the Mavericks may need to now go do is potentially go get another shooter.
I was just about to ask you that because I mean, right now on paper, their starting lineup because Lively won't be back until around playoff time, hopefully.
Right.
So right now,
Right.
their starting lineup could look like Kyrie, Max Christie, and I was going to bring up the Max Christie point.
Yes.
That's the only thing I hated about this trade for the Lakers. Like we got Maxi
too.
Kleba back, we got Morris. It remains to be seen before the trade deadline Thursday whether we keep both of those players or try to move them and get
I
another
think
guy or
Morris is
two.
going to be moved for sure.
I think
really do.
Morris
I'm
might
not-
honestly end up being cut, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
and Maxi Kleba, he's making $11 million. We could use him as kind of like a salary dump to either get some picks or we might be able to try to get a solid role player that can contribute to what we're
Yes.
trying to do this year. But the Max Christie piece is what really hurt me because Max Christie was starting to play like KCP did for us in that championship run. You remember KCP was straight D and 3-and-D. I was about to say D&D, pause, no Diddy.
Pause.
But yeah, Max Christie was straight 3-and-D, and like he was really starting to come into his own this last like month and a half since JJ Redick inserted him into the start lineup. But he's only 21 years old, so I think he's going to be a fantastic fit for the Mavs. And now they could potentially have a lineup where they'll have Kyrie, Max Christie, Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis, and Gafford. Or it can be Lively whenever he gets back, which on paper, that's a fantastic lineup. But to your point, like, does that beat the Thunder right now?
Does that beat the Celtics?
Does that beat Boston? Does that even beat the Cavs?
I was going to say, does that beat the Cavs? I don't think so.
And the thing is too, you got to look, and of course they still have PJ Washington. So,
Sure.
And of course, I'm saying this roster right now, this could change by Thursday's deadline. For all I know, they could go out there and try to get Jimmy Butler. Who knows?
Right.
So, because I mean, they still have some tradable assets and stuff, but at the same time, it's like if they keep that current roster as presently constructed, it's like they match up well, but I don't know if I'm taking them over the Thunder or, like you said, the Celtics or the Cavs or like even the Knicks necessarily. Like I know the Knicks didn't look good against us, but it's like that would be a crazy matchup, them against the Knicks.
Yes.
So, but this leads me into my next point for the Lakers. I don't think Rob Pelinka's done. I still think he's cooking a little bit. He's starting to run out a little bit of seasoning and stuff like that. Because the trade deadline is Thursday. We're already at Monday. But I genuinely think because from all I've been hearing, all the reports, it's like, when the trade first initially happened, people were like, oh, well, this season's a wash. I guess they're just going to, just let Luka and LeBron play and just kind of have this be a wasted season. The Lakers are a move or two away from actually being able to contend with some of these top other teams that I just mentioned. I mean, first off, you're going to have LeBron and Luka. We got to keep Austin Reeves. We still have Dorian Finney-Smith. We still have Vando, Rui. We still got a lot of good players, and J.J. Redick has been a phenomenal coach. The biggest thing we need right now is a big man. I mean, Anthony Davis said it even before the Luka AD trade happened. But the three that I want, and I'll get your thoughts as well. You might have a varying opinion or want to add somebody to this list. But if Rob can get one of these three centers by the trade deadline and Walker Kessler, Robert Williams. Well, actually, I have 4. Walker Kessler, Nicholas Claxton, Miles Turner, Robert Williams. If he can get one of those 4, or God forbid if the brother gets but like two out of the 4, I think we can honestly compete this year and potentially win it all, barring health and chemistry. If chemistry works out as well. But your thoughts?
So, couple of things, because I'm going to have to talk about Pelinka. I have to. We have varying opinions on this, and there are folks who are like, Rob is cooking up something else. Let's hope he is. I hope he is, and I hope he has now finally decided to get off his hands.
Yeah.
And there are going to be some who say, well, look at what he just did. Nope. Based on the reports, and I trust Chris Haynes and some of the others, this was for lack of a better word, this fell in his lap. Wasn't because he was out there doing anything special. Wasn't because he had gone out there and said, let me see what I can do as close to the trade deadline as humanly possible. Nico Harrison basically made him an offer.
Yeah, because they already had a prior relationship from the reports.
Exactly. Yeah. So this happened because you're tight with somebody, not because you did a good job. Now, in my opinion, is the time to see whether Rob Pelinka can pull something off.
I agree.
As big of a deal as this was, and as big of a trade as it was, it's not because Rob Pelinka is some GM genius. I'm certainly not. I'm just not of that opinion. I know you like some of the moves that he's made over the years, and you've given him credit. But for the last 2 years, I haven't seen much out of him.
Yeah.
And based on what the way the reporting that came out, that basically said Nico said we want AD because we want to get better defensively. And I mean, it's almost like a dude walks up to you and says, I've got some candy that I want to sell you. I know you like these flavors. And it's normally this price, but I'm going to let you choose which piece of candy you want, and I'm going to give it to you at a discounted rate. That's essentially what happened in this trade. So I'm not giving Rob Pelinka a whole bunch of credit just yet. What I am hearing, and then we can kind of put a bow on it and hope that he does go out and look at some of the talent that's out there. And I'm going to ask you a question, Jameson, about what I'm hearing and whether or not what your thoughts would be if this were to happen. Because you mentioned Miles Turner, you mentioned Robert Williams, Nick Claxton, and Walker Kessler, right?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So some of the rumors are, and I mean, again, this is on social media and some of the other places out there, but one of the rumors is that the Lakers are revisiting with the Pacers about trying to get Miles Turner. Mm-hmm. And they said that, they want Miles Turner, and the Pacers are basically saying, well, we would sweeten the pot if Austin Reeves was included. So I'm curious if, let's just say, for example, it was Miles Turner and
Benedict Mathurin, yeah.
Yes. Would you, what would be your thoughts about that if we had to give up Austin Reeves?
Man, this is tough. I'm going to say no. And part of it is bias. I'm a huge Austin Reeves fan, and I love Austin Reeves. And I'm going to say part of it is because of the contract he's on. He's only making $17 million a year. And it's like, it's hard to match that type of production for that cheap of a contract. He plays well with LeBron. I think he'll play phenomenal with Luka. So I would say no. But on the flip side, I would like, if we had to give up Austin Reeves to get Miles Turner, I would prefer us just giving up Rui and Gabe Vincent and that other first-round pick that we didn't include in the AD trade, in the Luka trade, and just going to get Nicholas Claxton or getting Robert Williams, if I'm being honest. Because, to your point, I think the only way it sounds like right now we'll be able to either get Miles Turner or Walker Kessler is if we actually include Austin Reeves in either of those trade packages, which is something I don't want to do. Because I know, we really need a big man, but at the same time, it's like, I don't feel like it's necessary to sacrifice Austin Reeves. One of the reasons I was so excited about the Luka trade is because we didn't have to give him up to get Luka. So I know you might have a varying opinion on that, but if we have to settle with Claxton or Robert Williams and we get to keep Austin Reeves, I'm completely fine with that, because you also have to look at this in the long term. We could go out there and get Nicholas Claxton or Robert Williams now, have a good end to this season, and then go get another big man this offseason with the mid-level exception or something like that. So I get what you're saying looking at it in the short term. And then also what's kind of risky about Miles Turner is he's eligible to be a free agent this offseason. So if he doesn't like playing with the Lakers, it's like we just gave up Austin Reeves for basically a rental. You know what I'm saying? So,
Well,
yeah.
not necessarily a rental if you're including Benedict Mathurin.
And that's the thing. I like Benedict Mathurin, but it's like Austin Reeves is just, he's been perfect for the Lakers. Like,
I don't disagree.
yeah.
I don't disagree.
So
I don't disagree that he's been perfect, but I disagree that he would have to go. He better learn Hoosier. I'm sorry.
he better get close with Caitlin Clark.
Absolutely.
I'm telling you, man. I want to keep him though. You know me, like I'm gonna be
Hoosier
honest.
fever.
I'm gonna be hurt if we have to trade him for a big. Like I'm at the point where like go get Claxton or go get Robert Williams and keep Austin Reeves. God forbid. I'm hoping there's a trade package where we can get Miles Turner, just do like Rui, Gabe Vincent, that first round pick that we have, and maybe 2 second-round picks. I'm fine with that. But if we have to include Austin Reeves, that's gonna hurt.
So here's my question: Do you think? We literally just talked about how LeBron and how Luka would work together.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves are going to work well together? The only reason I'm saying that is because Austin Reeves this year has gotten used to, facilitating and being the one who facilitates. Now with Luka and with LeBron, I will say, because we've seen it from experience. When you're on a team with LeBron, and now you're talking about LeBron and Luka, you have to take a back seat.
Yeah.
You just do. And so are you comfortable with him being the 2 guard? Because think about it, to your point, we just had, we ended up having to trade
Max Christie,
right. So we just had to trade him, Max Christie, 3 and D. Austin Reeves he can be a liability on defense.
Here's what I'm going to say. I think that honestly, it's going to be a blessing in disguise for Austin Reeves. I think now more so if he really wants to, and I think he will because he's that type of guy. I think now this allows him to give more effort defensively than he does on offense, having Luka and LeBron.
That's a good point.
And I think that can honestly allow him to take that next step. Like his numbers might go down a little bit offensively to start off, but he can become a way better defender and he can become more efficient, in my opinion, because he can honestly improve his 3-point percentage if he wants to and become a better defender because he's not going to have to exert so much energy. Because, for the past month and a half since we traded D'Lo, he's been the point guard. I mean, he's done a phenomenal job. And trust me, there'll still be instances where he can do that. Luka and LeBron.
The backup point guard, essentially.
Exactly. I was just going to say, the times where you take Luka off the floor, this still allows Brown to be able to play off the ball like he's been doing the last month and a half. So I think they actually can all complement. And I got to look at it like this. If LeBron's playing the 3, he's at the 2, and Luka's at the 1, I can't name a better perimeter trio in the entire National Basketball Association, in my opinion.
I would agree.
So, of course, there's going to be some questions defensively, but I think it could be a blessing in disguise. And now Austin Reeves can exert more effort defensively and guarding some of these other, primary ball handlers on the other team, instead of Luka having to do that. So I think, it could be a blessing in disguise or it could just completely just be a miss either way.
Yeah, well, that's also where having a DFS and a Vando.
Yep,
hopefully he's able to stay healthy. That would be.
Hopefully he's still on the roster. I hope we're not idiots and trade either one of the two.
Well, that's what I'm saying because I feel like either Rui or one of those two. I hope it's not DFS at this point.
Yeah.
But Rui or Vando may have to be included in order to get one of those guys. But I'm sorry, man. I mean, as much as I love him, I would say if it's Turner and Mathurin, because here's the thing I think that Miles Turner would do. I think he would stay. I think he would actually sign an extension because, that's going to give him an opportunity to be the true center, a stretch 5. We know he does that. He's a rim protector. He plays
and the game will be
defense.
Easy for him because that's right. Luka made Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively look amazing. You know what I'm saying?
Who had heard of Daniel Gafford before?
I
And
mean, we
I'm
had
no
heard of him, but he
disrespect.
was because he was on the Wizards. But it's like he wasn't a coveted
That's my
name,
point.
or like nobody was talking
No,
about him until he, came to the Mavericks.
that's right, and that's my point. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes, sir.
So I see both. I see positives, pros and cons on both. I mean, I of course, I would want to keep Austin Reeves, and I would love to be able to still get Miles Turner. But
Yes,
if
sir.
they're saying we'll give you, Mathurin, and we'll give you Miles Turner for Austin Reeves and a first round pick, and maybe you don't have to give up much of anything else. Whew, yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
gonna be
mean
tough. It's gonna be
it's gonna
tough.
be
We'll,
tough.
we'll see how Rob is thinking.
Yeah, we'll see how he's thinking. So, um, I know we're gonna pretty much try to wrap it up now in
Yeah.
the next couple of minutes, but one last thing that I wanted to mention to you because I did mention it to you earlier, or I alluded to it earlier with Palenka. What do you think he has to do? Now we're talking about Miles Turner,
Yeah.
Robert Williams. Kessler. I honestly think he's the
Kessler's the dream.
he's the dream, but I also think it's probably not necessarily going to happen
It's because of
because
Danny
Danny
Ainge. Yeah.
Ainge still has the whole Celtics Laker hate. The Laker hate because he was former Celtics and
Yeah.
he's going to make it hard.
It's
So I don't
funny.
necessarily.
Just
Yeah,
like
go ahead.
speaking about the Danny Ainge thing, sorry to cut you off, but they even
Yeah.
talked about it today. Like, shout out to Rob Pelinka for this. But Danny Ainge didn't even realize he was being included in this AD Luka trade until like 15 minutes before it was actually finalized. And I'm like, Rob Pelinka's a smart man because if Danny Ainge would have known about that, he wouldn't have even included
He wouldn't have
himself
done it.
just to be
That's right.
a jerk.
He would have.
And
You're
Dad,
absolutely right.
also one thing I gotta say is we got Jalen Hood-Shafino off the roster.
Boy.
People didn't
Now,
even and that's a W for Rob.
that is a W. That is absolutely a W.
That's good ball.
That is absolutely good ball.
But
So
was
I'll
your
give him credit for that. But his money is getting ready to get made
true?
based on what he's able. Because we've got listen, there has to be a big. And
And
you
was
gotta
your
get,
was that about to be your question to me?
yeah. That was essentially my question. Like, who are you going to be? I know those were the four that you mentioned. In order. Like, what's your fever dream as far as
In order,
Yeah, in
I would
order.
say, and you're gonna be shocked by this. I would say Walker Kessler first. I'm gonna say Nick Claxton second. And the
knew you were gonna say that.
and the reason why I'm saying that is because it's just the young factor. Like he's a big man that can continue to develop with Luka over the years, and it's like he's not he can't really shoot it all. I've seen him make a couple mid range shots, but it's like he's long pause, he's athletic. And they've been saying like the Lakers need a defensive presence and a lob threat, and I'm like I can't think of it. Like Miles Turner's athletic and can catch lobs, but Nicholas Claxton is literally the prototypical like play defense, catch lobs, and rebound the basketball. And he's younger. Like Miles Turner is still relatively young.
He's a young Capella to me.
Exactly.
That's who he is.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I would prefer that because his contract's not too crazy either. And that's somebody that he can be Luka's Gafford or Lively. You get what I'm saying? And then I would put Miles Turner third and then Robert Williams fourth. I really do like Robert Williams. The only thing that scares me is he just had health concerns the past couple seasons, even dating to back when he was still with the Celtics. So if he can get one of those four, though, I'm happy. Because what that shows is Rob really cares about not only the future, but trying to win now and compete even this year. And last thing I'll say, because I know we want to go ahead and just, wrap up the episode and get to moving the needle before we wrap up. But, the Lakers play the Mavs on February 25th. I can already tell you now, that's going to be probably the highest viewed regular season game we've had in the last decade. And I'm calling it now. Luka getting a 40-point game at least. I promise you. Like,
Luka's, it's a triple double.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be a 40-point triple double, and that's the thing. I think LeBron's gonna encourage that.
Yes, no question.
Yeah, no question.
And listen, I want.
With all due respect.
With all due respect, what I will tell you is, if this doesn't motivate Luka to get in shape,
exactly,
to prove all the. Literally all the things that the Mavericks have pretty much said, or the things that are starting to leak.
Yeah,
because they haven't necessarily come out and said, "Yeah, we just can't, we can't keep this dude on our roster anymore." But they said we can't keep this dude on our roster anymore. They didn't say it verbally, but they said it. If
Dad,
this doesn't motivate him, I don't know what will.
I think Babs people are still in shock because they even asked Mark Cuban a couple years ago. They were like, if you had to trade Luka Doncic or give away your wife or divorce your wife, he was like, yeah, like she can go and get ready to sign those divorce papers. So
He said, I'll be drawing up the divorce papers.
I still
I'm
think
like,
people are, and I'm gonna be honest. We'll leave it at this. And I'll, of course, let you give your final thoughts. But I kind of do feel bad for Mavericks fans in a sense, because like I said, AD is gonna be really good for them, but they just lost an international superstar who was literally invested in that franchise. Like, of course, I think Luka's excited now about the opportunity to play for the Lakers, play with Bron. But trust me, he's hurt deep down inside. And like you said, hopefully he turns that hurt into motivation and just continues to ball out. Like, to your point earlier, and we both said this, I think the best is yet to come for Luka Doncic, and we're about to see an ascension for him in Luka 2.0. That's the hope.
that is the hope. That is absolutely the hope. So, well, we're gonna wrap up this episode and with what we typically do, and that's moving the needle.
Yeah.
What is your moving the needle for this week?
I'm going to keep it quick. I'm going to just say, and maybe we can talk about the De'Aaron Fox Spurs trade. That's what we'll honestly do. We'll save the rest of
The moving the needle for me is that.
I was gonna say though, if we really want to, we can save the rest of like any transactions that happen before the deadline for next week's episode. But I think what moved the needle for me before all these trades was all the WNBA stuff that's been happening. Like DeWanna Bonner going to the Fever, Jewel Lloyd going to the Aces. You got Dejanay Carrington now going to the Wings. Like the WNBA, I mean, of course, I know that seismic shift with the Luka AD trade is basically, the talk of the sports world right now. But all the WNBA transactions that's happened, like I'm telling you, next season is going to be an absolute movie for the WNBA, and I feel like it's going to allow the game to continue to grow and just build on the momentum that they already had. So that's what moved the needle for me this past week.
Well, for me, it was the Spurs trade. De'Aaron Fox going to the Spurs, Zach LaVine headed to Sacramento, and it's obvious to me that the Bulls are definitely in rebuilding mode. I think they got Kevin Huerter, Trey Jones was somebody else.
Yeah.
And there are lots of picks that were thrown in there. So that moved the needle because that, De'Aaron Fox, Wembanyama combination could be, that could be deadly for years. Like the best comparison, if you think about it, might be what Utah used to do. When you had
Darren Williams and Carlos Boozer.
John Stockton and Karl Malone.
I mean, even for the Spurs, they had Tony Parker and Tim Duncan.
And Tim Duncan. Mm-hmm. So it's akin to those kinds of, guard, center, pick and roll combinations. So that's a big deal.
And Dad, they kept Stephon Castle too.
Which is insane.
Mm-hmm.
So again, another organization that got fleeced. I'm sorry, they did, because for them to keep Castle, that's a huge deal.
Yeah, I was because I remember even when the reports first came out, I was like, "There's no way they're getting De'Aaron Fox without including Stephon Castle," and they made it happen. And they'll still have Chris Paul. Like that's wild. And they kept Devin Vassell. I can't believe it.
Yeah, I thought one of those two, more so Castle, but I thought one of them they've got to include one of them, and you kept that young tandem as well. Yeah, that's special. So Spurs fans have a right to be happy, because that to me, that's a big deal.
Facts. I agree.
So that's what moved the needle. So all right, we're gonna wrap up this episode. This was exciting. Lots of stuff still happening this week. As we get more information, we'll be able to talk about whatever trades happen between now and our next podcast. But we appreciate everybody listening this week. We'll see y'all next week. Peace.